New York State. Key facts. Abbreviation NY. Nickname the Empire State. Capital Albany. Flower rose. Tree sugar maple. I know, same as Vermont copycats, eh? Bird eastern bluebird. Motto Excelsior. New York State is bigger than England. Despite this, it is only the 27th largest state in America, not even halfway up the list. The truth of how stupendously, absurdly large this country is has still failed properly to penetrate my brain. I have driven over 1,000 miles and I have done no more than wander around an area on the map smaller than the nail of my little finger. I crossed Lake Champlain from Vermont into upstate New York. The lakes and wilderness here are all part of the Adirondack mountain chain. New York State also contains the Appalachians and the Catskills with the River Hudson, Allegheny, Susquehanna, Niagara, and Delaware, too. This is one of the most remarkable and diverse adventure playgrounds on Earth. And that is before we even consider the delights of Broadway, Central Park, Greenwich Village, and Long Island. New York is nearly always called New York State, so as to distinguish it from New York City. This is true of Washington State too. Where I am now, Montreal, Canada, is only 80 miles north, while Fifth Avenue, New York City, is at least 5.5 hours away by fast car. The accents all around me are much closer to Canadian than to Brooklyn. The plaid shirts, the antlers, and the gun shops tell me that this is hunting country. Somewhere along the line, the American love affair with wilderness changed from the thoughtful, sensitive isolationism of Thoreau to the bully, manly, outdoor man bravado of Teddy Roosevelt. It is not for me, as an outsider, either to bemoan or celebrate this fact, only to observe it. Deep in the male American psyche is a love affair with the backwoods log cabin, camping out life. There is no living creature here that cannot, in its right season, be hunted or trapped. Deer, moose, bear, squirrel, partridge, beaver, otter, possum, raccoon, you name it, there is someone killing one right now. When I say hunted, I mean, of course, shot at with a high-velocity rifle. I have no particular brief for killing animals with dogs or falcons, but when I hear the word hunt, I think of something more than a man in a forage cap and tartan shirt armed with a powerful carbine. In America, it is different. Hunting means man bonding with man bonding with the sun, man bonding with pickup truck, man bonding with wood cabin, man bonding with rifle, man bonding, above all, with the plaid. Into the woods. I'm to be the guest of a group of friends who have built themselves a cabin deep in the woods, some 10 or 20 miles from the town of Saranac, New York. Bill and Tom are nice guys, ordinary guys, hunting for white-tailed deer, which is the game they are mostly after, is like fishing for bass, and mostly blue-collar pastime in America. Think of that Michael Cimino film The Deer Hunt and you will get the idea. Bill and Tom are not, I'm relieved to discover, machismo alpha male show-offs, bullies or bigots. They are working men, sheet metal, transport, warehousing, that kind of thing, who pour all of their spare time into maintaining and enjoying their life in the woods. Welcome to camp, says Tom. The cabin is surprisingly warm and snug when I arrive at 6 o'clock on a bitterly cold morning. The taxi has never had to negotiate such rough tracks before, and I am terribly afraid that I will suffer a humiliation of being towed by one of the enormous pickup trucks that usually roams these pathways. One of the group's number, Craig, has cooked just about the most fabulous breakfast I have ever eaten. bacon, sausage, French toast, and lots of home-tapped and home-refined maple syrup. All around the cabin are maple trees with pipework stuck into them, like hospital tubes and drips. Around the back is the machinery needed to transform the liquor from the tree into breakfast syrup. Now let's get you kitted up. Tom holds up a plaid jacket and an enormous pair of woolen trousers. Naturally, of course, it wouldn't do for me to look dignified or sensible. This hat is rather a sudden orange, isn't it? I complained, dropping a day-glow foraging cap on the table. Hunting orange, they call it. Other huntsmen know not to shoot you. Yes. I pick the cap up again. I like it, gold with my complexion. I make it very plain as we head for the trails that I would rather not hold a rifle and certainly prefer not to watch anything being killed. My sentimental Bambi-loving self is not keen on the idea of seeing a deer felled. The antlers on the wall of the cabin tell me that these guys, charming as they are, have done a good deal of killing in their time. They are perfectly okay about my reluctance to kill. I think they had sized me up for a CCI moment I stepped out of the cab. My role then is to skip along with them, prattling about life and nature. The American relationship with the outdoors, I say, the thorough ideal, is deep in the American psyche. Isn't it man and nature, the great paradox of nature that invades and degrades the wilderness and yet treasures it above all else? Guess so. New York State contains these, the great outdoors, the American dream of the woods and the wilderness, but also the industry, the suburbs, the great urban sprawl, and of course Manhattan. Maybe New York State is a symbolic of all America, embodying both the call of the wild and the call of the street. Maybe. You're right, Untoken Drill. I'll shut up now. I'm happy to say that no deer were killed in the making of our scene. In fact, we didn't even see a deer, which suited me. Instead, I enjoyed wonderful hospitality, warm companionship, and a good walk in beautiful woodland. I berated myself for having been so afraid. But after a cup of coffee, it was time for a 330-mile drive. I was due to meet another group of potential terrifying men. Italian Americans, type side of nose. Wise guys. Winks conspiratorially. Good fellas. Bada bing. The Middle Village Social Club. Middle Village is an area of Queens, New York, mostly inhabited by Irish and Italian Americans, two ethnic groups which traditionally get along with each other pretty well. I've been invited to say hello to the boys of a particular social club. I have seen these places before, in gangster pictures like Donnie Brasco, Goodfellas, and Casino, not to mention in real footage of FBI stings and wiretappings on the Gambino family clubs of John Gotti and Sammy the Will Gravana. Am I really going to hang out with organized crime hoods with mobsters? Is that an ethical thing to do? To contribute to the glamour and status of violent criminals? Well, this social club is largely different. It is, how can I put it nicely, a home for failed gangsters, for guys who didn't quite make it, possibly because they were too nice. The old ones are really very old indeed, and the young ones, like Mikey, who wears a Godfather's t-shirt and the obligatory leather jacket, have earned more money from doing big parts in The Sopranos rather than from anything illegal. At least, so I am led to believe. I am welcomed inside this little two-room house by Mikey and the boys. The back room is given over the card games. The front room has a big screen TV, sofa, a bar, and walls that are covered with sporting photographs and posters. Betting seems to play a large part in the life of this club. I'm not surprised Mikey has found work in TV and movies. He has a central casting, low hairline, and you talking to me, posture and gait. He cannot stop smiling. He cannot stop telling stories. He cannot stop talking. I have not been in there half an hour before he tells me a story he has already told. The others all meet my confused gaze and roll their eyes. Good old Mikey. He don't know when to shut up, an old boy whispers to me. I suppose that is why he's failed to make it as a button man or whatever the phrase is. That and the fact that he just seems too good-natured, too lacking in guile. He's like a great puppy. He tells twice a story about chasing a thief through a neighborhood, tackling him and punching his lights out before the police arrived, so perhaps I'm being a little naive. He is anxious for me to know that he would only ever show violence to someone nasty. The thief had stolen a child's bicycle, and that, he says, we used to not do. You will think use is a bit old hat, a bit Damon Ryman, but I promise you that is how he said it. I sit down on the sofa with Dave, who tells me the tales about the old days. An immensely complex story about cocking up a horse and opening takes 10 minutes and is filled with the kind of colors and splendor that fiction cannot match. Sometime back in the 40s, when Dave was young, he had a sure teen. He had inside knowledge of a horse which would win a race and account of how he had this drug, what I call it. I am stared at through Dave's one good eye and nudged quite violently to provide the name of this drug if I am an expert. This puzzles me. I had no idea that was a drug that which could guarantee a horse winning a race. A stimulant some kind of maybe. That's it, sting you like you said. I got an even sharper dick in the ribs for having solved the mystery of what the drug might have been. I'm beginning to revise my opinion of non-violent nature of these people. Anecdotal assaults may not carry a heavy sentence, may not even be recognized in law as a crime against the person, but by the time I rise from the sofa I'm more or less black and blue. Dave told me tales of his days running numbers, laying bets, and serving time in prison. Only on-track betting. OTB is legal in America, so all street bookers are liable to arrest. We always ordered dinner from Giovanni's restaurant to be delivered to ourselves. The sergeant would let us make the call so long as we included a linguine for him. It was a good arrangement. Worked well for 20 years to rebuild the station house and moved the sergeant to another precinct. What are you gonna do? All the stories seem to feature him in a disaster situation where as a small-time booker's runner, he lost money for someone, forgot to lay off a bet, got in trouble, ended up in prison. The speed with which he can steal shade odds and rattle through the 13-5, 11-4 type ratios made my head spin. He may have liked to present himself as one of nature's losers, but he was clearly not a fool. Whenever I praise these old boys and use words like mafia or Cosa Nostra, they smile and raise their hands in innocent bewilderment. I'm beginning to think they were simply charming senior citizens who just happen to have the same accent and ethnicity as mafiosi. Then I spot the bullet holes. Yeah, that was a drive-by or was playing cards. I Billy just missed Don's head so much. Mikey brings his forefinger and thumb very close together. But why? I asked. Sheesh, what are you gonna do? Which is no kind of answer. The guy who really owns and runs the club turns up. A barrel-chested fellow about 5 foot tall, with something in his eye which compels me to stop asking questions. He too is friendly, but it is impossible not to notice when the mere presence of someone in a room shuts everyone else up. He has the extraordinary ability to silence Mikey. I smell power. John the cabbie. My guide in New York City has been a cabbie called John. He lives around the corner from the Italian social club, and he's the one who affected my introduction. John is of Irish stock. Indeed, he quite proudly tells me how he had worked hard for NORAID, the charity that funded the IRA back in the days of the Troubles. As we drive to his yellow cab garage, which is like a scene out of the 17th sitcom Taxi, I ask him how he feels about the new accord in Northern Irish politics. I thought what 20 years would let Ian Paisley rule. He says, how do you think I feel? In a short while I have met deer hunters, mafia criminals, and the man who raised money for the IRA, and I like them all. I saw their points of view. What is happening to me?